it's super chill, so I want to do animation when they turn around maybe. So this I'm thinking about, of course, the creation. So that's the idea of that. Hi, I'm Agnieszka Pilat. I'm from Poland, and I'm an artist. I paint portraits of machines and technology. So I came to New York from San Francisco, from Bay Area, Silicon Valley. But before then, of course, I was born. I grew up in Poland, and about in my early 20s, I came out here straight to Silicon Valley, and I wasn't an artist. I mean, I was a graphic designer. I had a background in graphics, but I came here and I lived in San Francisco, and it was really great. And I came with a great kind of ideas about America and what America is, and great, the great love for the country. In Poland, we love America very much. So I grew up in Poland in what was still communist regime behind the Iron Curtain, and again looking at America from the place of just real love and admiration, and watching movies like Rocky. It's a huge influence in Poland, especially when Rocky, beat up Drago. That was a great moment for us. So when I came here, I had a very good life. I traveled a lot, really wonderful. And but over time, I kind of got to a place of thinking, a little confused how things were here. And in this era of very political, hyper-divided country, it's kind of strange to talk about it, but I really came with the idea that I love free markets because I grew up behind the curtain and it was really dark. And after living here for a while, and especially in San Francisco, that's so very liberal and very left-wing, I thought, well, it's all great, but maybe if I could tell my story, how I grew up and what Poland was, people would realize that maybe going so much to the other side maybe is not a good idea. And meanwhile, around the same time, actually someone gave me a book, Atlas Shrugged, and that had huge influence on me. And I kind of grew out of it a lot, but in the background of my mind, Atlas Shrugged is still a pretty important piece of my, ideas about morality. So I decided, well, I'm gonna go back to school. I'm gonna go to art school and get trained and become the best graphic novelist in the world, and I'm gonna do a graphic novel based on Atlas Shrugged. So that's how I got back into art in this weird, kind of complicated way. And so I was studying illustration, and 2 years into the academy, I kind of realized I don't really like illustration that much, and I moved towards fine art. And part of it was also, I still didn't disown the book. I was still very much gung-ho on doing Atlas Shrugged, but I figured to be the best graphic novel artist, I need to become the best painter, the best fine art painter. And when I started doing fine art and painting, it became such a big part of me, and I realized how much I loved it. And I realized, again, half a year through school, that I'm not gonna do the graphic novel, and I went into fine art. So being in school and starting to do a lot of fine art, I went very heavy into painting figure, actually, for a while, because for a painter, figure is a very important show of skill, and I became very good at painting figure, but then I realized, wait, there's nothing to say by painting figure. It was very uninteresting, actually, even though technically very good. And I was approached by a friend who became a big patron now, who said, well, you know what, I like the way you paint, but the figure, I don't like it so much. Why don't you paint something for me? Why don't you paint a machine for me? And this is a person who is a developer, real estate developer in San Francisco, and in commercial space. So I went to their studio, in their office, and I found old fire alarm, and I painted a portrait of that. And when I did that, I remembered, oh, that's why I went into art and painting and school, because I wanted to tell a story of America through technology. So, and it all really clicked together. And now looking in retrospect, it looks so obvious. Of course I'm painting portraits of machines. Who cares of portraits of people in these days, right? The new aristocracy is the machine. So it became, again, in retrospect, it became all very clear, but it was kind of complicated way to get there. So, and then also living in Silicon Valley and actually seeing, the haves and the have-nots and the innovation and the progress coming from technology and from Silicon Valley, but also the money coming from it, it became a very interesting story just about America, told through the story of machines and innovation and industry. The years that I've been painting machines, I painted probably 50 machines, and some of them are iconic and some are just everyday machines. I like to think that machines are important as in their collective way they change our lives. So sometimes I paint machines that are really very insignificant, just cogs in a big industry. When I started first painting, they were old industrial machines that are outdated and not used anymore. And probably most iconic one was I painted at the computer museum in Silicon Valley called Amazing Grace, and that machine was based on a UNIVAC computer, and it was super fun because those industrial old computers are just huge. I moved towards more modern stuff over time. It's been a challenge actually, because I think of myself as a portrait painter. So when you think about painting a portrait of an older person, like old machine, there's a lot to say. There's wrinkles, there's personality, there's a lot of essence. And you capture, as a painter, you try to capture that essence, not the superficial. But with old machines, I've been very successful. They're super easy to paint. The new machines that I moved towards, like Spot here, more challenging, because as a painter, if you were thinking portrait of a baby, it's not that interesting. As a teenager, they come off arrogant or stupid, or they dress weird, so there would be that. So it's been a challenge actually, but made me grow a lot also. So from the new stuff, I'd say Spot is one of my favorites. Also, and I called it Marcella. So the concept behind this painting is that I wanted to pay tribute to Marcel Duchamp. This is a very historically important painting. So just like Duchamp, who with the nude descending the staircase, this is Marcella after Marcel Duchamp. So there's that connection historically. Now, the business of art, I don't recommend it. It's very hard. No, it's wonderful because I do what I love doing. It's not the best or easiest way to make money, but here I am in New York, in the best, probably the most expensive real estate in the world. The residency here in New York is sponsored by the Silverstein Properties, and what's interesting about this is that Larry Silverstein, when he signed the lease for the World Trade Center for the Lower Manhattan, he had this dream, I'm gonna rebuild it in a way that, rebuild it. The towers were still here, so that's the interesting part. And so he wanted to revive and make it more a better place to live and to work. So Larry Silverstein, who was already an older gentleman, he signs the lease, and 6 weeks later, the towers come down. And again, this is a person who's older, who worked their entire life. Of course, this is a horrible twist in his plan, and he does not give up. He's like, I'm gonna rebuild it. So it takes him 20 years to rebuild this, and it's an amazing site. And COVID hits. And all the office buildings, everything, work from home. It's all quiet. Everyone goes home. And so his story for me is so amazingly inspiring. This is a person who is, I think Larry is 89 now. Never give up. Just do what you are meant to do, and just push forward. So it's very inspiring for us and artists in this residency to really know that this is how Larry operates. So for COVID-19, the time has been, it's been hard for everyone, of course. And when I first knew I was coming to New York, there was no COVID back then still. So I had this idea, I'm gonna meet all these people, I'm gonna network and go to shows, and it's gonna be amazing, and I'll have people coming to the studio. And of course, pretty much none of this is happening, and that's been hard. So, so like Viktor Frankl says, who's a hero of mine, if you can't change the circumstances, you have to change how you operate or how you think of them. And so I was able really to, and I think a lot of people I know kind of take a mindset that, okay, this is the time when I can plant the seeds. So for me, it became a very actually creative time. Normally I would be networking a lot and I'll be meeting a lot of people, and that's what this was supposed to be, but that was not happening. So instead of kind of getting in a sad mindset, what I can't do, what I could do, and that's why I started doing a lot of AR. And also asking for help. I became more vocal about asking for help, because in general, like, I don't like bothering people. We don't like being vulnerable and asking for things. But I've asked for introductions from my patrons, and going to Boston Dynamics and working with the most advanced robots in the world. That was a result of me asking for help and a personal introduction. So a lot of artists here, I think we were able to take the time and plant the seeds and look towards the future, and remember this year 2020 as a year again of creativity and learning.